What happens when a leader is under extreme pressure? Often good advice would be get a coach who knows what they're doing, and think with them about how you might tackle the pressure you've got. Is there a more dynamic way of getting hold of that pressure than talking about it and talking about what you might do? The story of Jane's might interest you. I think, Jane, this was an invitation from another consultant who thought your Dialogic approach would be more helpful. So
it was.
What happened?
Yeah, that's a nice start, because she had been coaching individuals in the team, and she could see that something more collective and dynamic was needed, and knew that the approach I take through professional dialogue would be, well, she believed it would help them. And that's quite unusual to be invited in by another consultant. Let me say a bit about the organisation. So it was an organisation that worked in national government. It was like a civil service. They were responsible for functions around auditing and compliance monitoring, making sure public money is spent properly, appropriately, efficiently. And the organisation had two parts particularly. One was doing more routine analysis and audit of public spending. The other was doing more dynamic, high-profile projects that were in the public domain, that were of media interest, and that were of political interest. So there's a more standard and a more high-stakes part of the organisation.
This is government within European
Yes.
country.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there was essentially a COO, an operating officer, who managed all of those activities, and the CEO had a slightly more political and external role. So she was managing quite a complex team and quite a lot of pressure. The other complexity I found was that she had a kind of dual reporting lines, one to the CEO, but then another directly to a government committee that she had to report to. And that felt sometimes, particularly as there are quite big characters involved, like she was being pulled in different directions. So that didn't help. It was quite complex already. That really didn't help.
Sounds almost like a kind of structural trap when you report to two different, one an individual, another grouping, who may not agree with each other.
Yeah.
May have different ideas about what to do. You can start to feel a little bit of sympathy for the pressure this woman was under.
Absolutely. And also everybody thought they were more important and their work should be prioritised. So it was quite challenging. And I think that structural trap, because one of the things you might say, well, why didn't they change the structure? Well, that's quite a big job in government. You don't just restructure government committees and departments overnight. So that wasn't an option. So I'd worked with them. I worked with them as a team on a couple of occasions before that this kind of crisis around the CEO became apparent. So I think I'd already developed some good rapport with them and a sense of trust, and we had a way of working as a group. But it became obvious that this issue needed to be addressed directly. So I had a day with them and we did that.
So these were not the reporting groups outside, but this was the team. And rather than just coaching the individual with the pressure, you start to look at how it plays out in the team, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So they were a very intelligent group of people, and you could, in a way, talk yourselves in circles. So I did what a more physical activity with them, what we would call a spatialization. And that meant that in the room, we created a kind of human map of the relationships within the team. So what that looked like, first of all, the CEO stood up in the room. And then one by one, I'd invite members of the team to join her and stand in relation to her. Like, am I close? Am I in front of her, behind her, on her shoulder? How far away am I? Am I facing her? Am I facing out?
This sounds quite challenging. You're revealing how you think about your boss and how you think you interact with your boss in front of everybody else live.
Yeah, 100%. And I wouldn't recommend anyone go storming into an organization and doing this. I think it was possible because of the rapport that I built up with her, the COO, and the CEO, and actually all the team on a number of occasions. And even the day itself, we set up, we talked and checked in and did a number of things before. And I believed that the relationships and the safety was such that it was possible to do this, potentially tricky exercise. And everybody had their opportunity to speak. It wasn't just about one person or another person or a couple of relationships. Everybody was involved. So as you had a couple of people up and then others joined, each time somebody positioned themselves, would check with everybody. How does this feel to you? Is that until everybody moved a little bit, until everybody felt, yeah, this is about right. So we had a kind of tableau of the dynamics. And of course, when people were facing away, they weren't facing away because they didn't like the COO. It was because they were focused on their clients in the field, in other organizations, or they were focused on politicians or focused on the media. So that was all that it was about. So they could start to see the situation. Yeah.
So you could see the different concerns and interests of everybody in the room. I recall doing something similar where somebody placed themselves next to the CEO, and I asked the CEO how he felt about them being there. He said, I'd rather if you were a bit more in front of me and within reach, that I could put my hand on your shoulder if I need to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, did that happen? Was there a little bit of, it would help me if you were slightly here or slightly more of that, or the two of you were a bit closer together or whatever?
What we did, so this was a team of about 8 people. So first of all, we got what it was, so you could see the tension there. I feel quite tense just talking about it. And then we start to say, well, how do we change? How do we want things to be? And that's where we got that movement. Step in, turn slightly to the side, because you've got to keep your eye on what's happening externally, but also be part of the team. So everybody started to shift. So we had a common understanding about what's happening now, a common understanding about where we want to get to. And what it meant was that everybody understood and everybody had a role in changing it. So it was common ownership, shared ownership about how to make things better, which is a recognition that we're all in this together. Yeah.
It's interesting. I recall on some occasions moving a large, heavy object with a lot of people carrying it together. And it's quite hard to distribute the load evenly. You suddenly find somebody's really battling and other people are not carrying much weight. And that's the kind of thing comes out in this, isn't it? That
absolutely.
There's real pressure and tension for some. For others, there's a spaciousness and ease, which then they can move around and do a bit more in a different way.
Yeah. And of course, if you had a coach, then you feel like, oh, there's a lot of pressure on me and I'm not doing good enough. And therefore I've got a coach to help me get better. And actually you can make it worse, I think, sometimes. So I continued working with them for a little while, but it was this just a kind of shared ownership of what was happening that I think was the critical thing. All the little changes then started to fall in place, but nobody was looking at somebody else to do something. Everybody was thinking about what they had to do.
So it was all out in the open that we're interdependent, interconnected, and how each of us plays makes a difference. And she had a chance for that to be apparent to all her colleagues in the way she managed it.
Yeah. Again, it's like, it felt like she was the one person like that holding it all up. And suddenly everybody was holding a bit. Like your image of carrying a heavy object is about right. It really did shift things for the whole team in quite a significant way. And I think you can't underestimate that kind of visceral impact of doing something in this spatialized way rather than just talking about it or drawing an image on a flip chart or whatever.
Sounds a very good way with quite intellectual people to do something rather physical, to display not only the relationships and concerns and interests, but pressures, and have it all openly together with limited understanding that it's a fragmented situation, isn't it? And this is understanding the whole situation is what makes the difference dialogically. And clearly it has done here.
Seeing it all. And what I think also happens as people discover what they have to do, it's not, here are the 5 things I'm going to do, it's an intention. And then when they leave the room, they may discover 20 things that they can do, who knows? But they know what the spirit and the stance and the intention is of how they should act within the team.
Jane, a great story. It's interesting, the stories are all quite different and yet essentially all the same, aren't they? In every case, it's with limited understanding, you make decisions and act. When you start to understand what's happening with the whole, and when you see how you're participating and affecting what's happening, and when you do that openly, can talk about it and think about it with others, then you start to have a more coherent and more helpful way of managing it. And you can feel the change of pressure for the unfortunate leader in that situation. So a lovely story, and I know you have more, and I have more. So we're aiming maybe 100 stories about professional dialogue, what it looks like at work. So if you'd like to hear more, please do.
You can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts and hear stories not only about government agencies, but about commercial organisations, the oil and gas industry, in all sorts of corners of the world, also corrections where we've worked a lot. So please do have a listen. Thank you.
Thank you.